Makoto goes to school, and he relaxes when he gets home, but he's suddenly summoned by the moon god Tsukuyomi. Makoto instantly recognizes him from an old Japanese legend, and Tsukuyomi tells him he needs to sign a contract and go to another world, just like his parents. We learn that Makoto's parents were originally from another world, and were transferred to Japan to save themselves. But while making a deal with the goddess, they promise to one day offer their most precious possession. Makoto realizes that the god is talking about him, and that he must fulfill the contract or else one of his sisters will be taken, so he ends up agreeing to go. After signing the contract, Tsukuyomi grants Makoto all the power he can give to help him in the other world, and even promises to delete his browser history. Makoto is sent to the new world, but with the warning that the goddess he's going to meet is problematic. Makoto appears before the goddess, but she's instantly disgusted to see him. She ridicules him, calling him too ugly to be the hero for her world. She claims that she has already found a more suitable hero, so she decides to dump Makoto at the edge of the world with the other low-ranked creatures. However, since she must give him some power, she decides to give him the power to understand every language besides human. The goddess sends Makoto into the abyss, where he again encounters Tsukuyomi, who informs him that since he is no longer needed as a hero, he's free to do whatever he wants. However, Tsukuyomi adds that since Makoto had a harsh life in his previous world, he will have more power in this world. After this revelation, Tsukuyomi disappears, hoping to one day meet Makoto again. Makoto continues to fall from the sky, finally landing in a wasteland with no sign of life. He keeps walking for 3 days, but finds nothing, which makes him feel lonely and depressed. But suddenly, he hears the distant voice of a girl asking for help. He rushes toward the direction of the sound and finds a pig-like creature. The girl is being attacked by a two-headed monster, so he decides to save her. Makoto dashes at full speed and jumps on the creature with immense power, which surprisingly beheads it, and Makoto is shocked to see his own strength. The girl is terrified by the sight and tries to escape, but Makoto stops her and introduces himself. She is shocked that a human can understand her language, and Makoto is even more shocked that he's talking to a pig right now, but he tries to convince her that he's a nice guy. The girl introduces herself as Emma, and mentions she was headed to the Divine Mountain to offer herself as a sacrifice to the deity named Shin. Her village has been covered in a fog for a long time now, and it ruins their crop harvest, but whenever they offer someone to Shin, the fog is lifted. Before she goes through with the offering, Emma brings Makoto back to her house to thank him for saving her, and while having dinner with her brothers, Makoto soon realizes that magic is a basic skill for the people of this world, so he asks Emma to teach him. Emma starts by teaching some fire magic, which is supposed to be tricky, but Makoto learns it in one go, surprising everyone. They suspect Makoto to be at a high level, but when they check, he's only at level 1, so Emma continues to teach him. The next day, Makoto heads out to see if he can do something, so Emma won't need to sacrifice herself to Shin. Since he was in the school archery club, Makoto transforms fire into a bow and arrow. He shoots the arrow towards the entrance to the mountain, which surprisingly destroys the gate, leaving several men wounded, and we learn that these men were using Shin's name to scare the orcs. But since Makoto has attacked Shin's home, it triggers the creature to appear. A red fog covers everything, and a huge dragon emerges, attacking Makoto. But he dodges all of the dragon's attacks, even though the mist is blocking his vision. Makoto uses a new skill that lets him sense the dragon, so he dodges everything before launching his counterattack. He surrounds the dragon with fireballs and blasts her repeatedly, which shocks the creature, wondering how he has so much power. Makoto punches the dragon, knocking it down, but when Makoto lowers his guard, the dragon attacks using its magical eyes to trap him in an illusion. We see Makoto at the archery club talking to his junior Nikumi, who he has a crush on. She confesses her love to him and asks him for a date, but Makoto doesn't believe it since he isn't good looking. He realizes it's just an illusion, and uses his power to dispel it. He understands the power Tsukuyomi gave him, and it allows him to manipulate his surroundings at will. He used it earlier to sense Shin through the fog, and now strengthens his fists with it to break through the illusion. He prepares to confront the dragon, but she no longer sees him as an enemy. She's impressed by his immense powers, and his memories from the other world. She tells him she's seen his memories, and wants to learn more about his world. So she offers him a contract to become his companion, which would benefit them both. Makoto is hesitant at first, but ends up agreeing, and the dragon begins the ritual. Strange magic surrounds them, and the dragon tries to form a balanced contract. But Makoto's power overwhelms her, so he ends up becoming her master, and she's transformed into a human. After a contract is formed, the weaker being takes the form of the stronger one, which is why she became a human, but her appearance isn't the only thing that changed, as she shows Makoto the demi-plane she has control over. It can be accessed through mist gates that she can open, but as they enter the plane, they find a lush and fertile field, which Shin is shocked to see. The plane used to just be a dark and empty abyss, but Makoto's influence must have changed it, even having fruits that he recognizes from Earth. To be sure of the scale of this place, Makoto uses his new Kai ability to scan the demi-plane, realizing that the place is absolutely huge, but gets cut off at the end of the mist wall. If the demi-plane is a place where Shin has complete control, Makoto thinks that it probably means the goddess can't interfere with his life there, so he thinks about building a city inside. As he thinks about settlements, Makoto remembers that the reason he came to the mountain in the first place was to deal with Shin taking orcs as sacrifices, but in reality, she had nothing to do with that. Since it was all just a misunderstanding, Makoto wants to head back to explain things, so as they exit, they run into Emma, who came to convince him not to fight Shin. But she's shocked when she learns that the girl standing behind him is the Great Dragon. A party is held in celebration of Makoto's victory, which revealed the truth behind the sacrifices, and Emma thanks him from the bottom of her heart for saving their village. The village elder wants to repay him in some way, so Shin makes a suggestion that the orcs move into her demi-plane, and by the next day, all the orcs have packed up their stuff ready to move. Makoto is hesitant to just have them change their residence overnight, but the orcs are determined to repay him for the kindness he has shown them by swearing their undying loyalty to him, and Shin has already made sure the plane is completely safe to live in. In the event something dangerous were to happen, Shin reveals a mini version of herself, who will be there to take care of them. So Makoto agrees to let them move in, and construction on the new town begins. While the orcs are busy with that, Makoto spends his time practicing his magic, while Shin has her fill of his memories of historical dramas, but he starts getting annoyed by her constantly digging through his memories. Shin admits that it's inconvenient for him to have to sit still while she watches his memories, so she says she will figure out a way to build a television to play them instead. While she's gone, Makoto sees some of the memories Shin left open and starts to miss his family, but since his parents were apparently originally from this world, he thinks he might be able to find some information about what their life was like in this world. Meanwhile, in a nearby forest, a dwarf is running for his life as he's chased down by a giant spider monster. Makoto walks around the demi-plane and runs into some of the orcs who seem to be having trouble with a huge tree. They want to cut it down so they can build Makoto a house befitting the lord of the land, but it is too hard for them to cut through with their axes. Makoto is happy to lend a hand and uses his Kai to strengthen himself, allowing him to cut through the tree and pick it up with ease. He's also able to heal wounds without having to expend any mana at all, so he's greatly appreciative to Tsukuyomi for granting him such a powerful skill. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he can heal his own wounds, but he thinks it won't be an issue as long as he doesn't get hurt. Moments later, Shin returns to the demi-plane with the dwarf after finding him wounded in the forest. She ran into an old enemy of hers while she was out, and after smelling the blood from Makoto's injured hand, it breaks its way into the demi-plane to attack. But Shin decides to stay out of it and let Makoto handle it instead. It's a spider monster plagued with the curse of unending hunger, so it will eat literally anything it can get its legs on. Since it's a spider, Makoto starts his attack with the fire element to sever one of its legs, but its regeneration is powerful enough that it recovers almost instantly and continues attacking. Makoto is able to damage it, but if it keeps healing itself, he thinks the fight will never end. He continues launching fire spears, but he ends up getting caught off guard and stabbed through the gut by the spider's leg, but it just makes him angrier. He unleashes his full power and begins firing repeated fire blasts with no delay in between, following it up with an insanely destructive water arrow. After his display of power, he passes out from exhaustion, but the spider is still able to regenerate and it grabs him once more. However, it seems to have taken a liking to him after he gave her such a fulfilling battle, and Shin suggests that she become one of Makoto's servants as well by forming a contract with him, so by the time Makoto wakes up, there's another girl by his side. Makoto wonders who she is, so she explains that she's the spider that he just fought with. She now assumes a human form because of the contract established with Makoto while he was unconscious. Makoto is shocked by this because he didn't think it was possible to form a contract without the consent of both parties. Shin walks in, and Makoto immediately confronts her on forming a contract for him without his consent, but she replies saying that it was better than a giant spider following him the entire time. The dwarf they saved introduces himself as Biren. He thanks Makoto for driving away the spider that has terrorized his village for such a long time, and he also requests that he and his people permanently live in Shin's demiplane. Makoto almost immediately agrees to this, but Shin steps in and states that Biren and his people can move in, but in return, they would have to satisfy a few conditions of theirs, like providing them with weapons, and also acknowledging Makoto as the lord of the land. Biren isn't sure, but she gifts him 2 of her dragon scales to help convince his people. The next day, Makoto walks around, trying to trace his parents' path and find human settlements, but Shin then appears and informs him that there is a serious matter which requires his immediate attention. He's back at the hut, where Shin states that she and the Spider Girl need new names because the citizens of the demiplane didn't know what to call them. Makoto gets upset because he was called back for something so trivial, but Shin and the Spider Girl still insist on the new names, so Makoto gives Shin the name Tomo, which was the name of the strongest female samurai, and the Spider Girl is given the name Mio. The next day, a gathering of all citizens of the demiplane has been arranged, and Makoto is surprised at all the new species which have populated the area. Tomo and Mio introduce themselves with their new names, and also mentions that Makoto should be addressed as either their master or lord. Makoto thinks it's ridiculous,